there's problems at work. There's problems, in any of the scheduling and stuff that you go through. I got 7 kids. I could complain about work and I could complain about kids, but then I become a guy who's complaining. I've lost enthusiasm. I'm not riding for the brand. Truth is, I love my wife and kids, and I have a lot to work on. I love what I'm doing with and for our clients, and there's still areas that we need to improve, but I'm not going to be this negative, unenthusiastic person because that's countercultural to what we're building.
Rising above the buzz of ultrasonic cleaners and the clanking of stainless steel are the ideas and voices that are changing an industry. You're listening to the Beyond Clean podcast, the central nexus for the people, processes, and products that are improving our sterile processing world. Each week, we speak with frontline technicians, CEOs, engineers, and entrepreneurs with a common goal: to help you fight dirty, every instrument, every time. Whether you're tuning in for education or inspiration, we're glad you did. Now turn on those washers and turn up the volume. It's time to go beyond clean.
Hey there, clean freaks and sterile processing universe. This is Hank Balch. You're listening to Beyond Clean, season 24, the papers that make us awesome. We are kicking this one off with a bang. We're bringing in the big guns, and we're going to be talking about culture today across all of industry, every business, every entity that is doing something that has a goal, that has a mission. They're going to have values. Even if they're not written down, they're going to have a vision, or they should have a vision for where they're going in accomplishing their mission. And today we're bringing in studio with us Jeff Schiefelbein to talk to us about that. He's from a group and team called Undivided Life, and we're going to dig in to his opinions on mission, vision, value statements, if they're important, and if so, why they're important, how you can bring down the mission and vision of your health system to what's going on in the day-to-day in your sterile processing. And maybe most important than all of that is how at the end of your career, or maybe even at the end of your life, you can look back at the time that you spent as a clean freak in sterile processing and be proud and feel connected in a way that's deeper than just a job, deeper than just a paycheck. It actually means something more. If this is what you want, and this is the interview that you want to tune in for. So hang with us. We'll be right back in just a couple of moments to kick off a fantastic blockbuster season 24 on Beyond Clean, and we'll talk to Jeff Schiefelbein.
From the studios of Healthcare HQ, you're listening to Beyond Clean, the global voice of sterile processing.
Clean freaks, well, we are in the studio now, ready to get into this conversation that's kicking off season 24. This is episode 1 of the papers that make us awesome, and we're talking about something that I think is one of, if not the most important questions around building strong cultures and leaders in our departments. And in studio with us today is Jeff Schiefelbein, the managing partner at Undivided Life. So Jeff, welcome to the show today. Glad you could join us.
Thanks. And thank you to all the clean freaks. If I could just be a self-nominated, I'm a culture freak.
Okay. Well, it takes culture freaks to make good clean freaks. And if they don't believe that yet, Jeff, hopefully by the end of this interview, we'll be able to convince them. So for folks who are not aware of you, what do you do? What's your day job there at Undivided Life?
Sure. So Undivided Life was launched 15 months ago as really a way of doing business. It's a fundamental belief that you can create cultures that are vibrant and bring out the very best in people while also producing the highest quality goods and services. So it's like a have your cake and eat it too concept that you can have profitable, sustainable, healthy growth, and a great place to work that makes human beings more fulfilled and better at who they are as just showing up in the world, right? They're better employees, but they also become better spouses and children and members of civic society and their church organizations because you're using your business to bless them. So that didn't even tell you what we do. We do a lot of consulting. We help people to achieve this same thing. It's a little bit of we touch everything. We do leadership development, coaching, some speaking and workshops. But then it's also a holding company because we love this so much that we're starting our own brands. We have built out the beginnings of a venture studio to go and tackle tough problems. And we're currently trying to purchase other organizations that we think, especially in this baby boomer world, they're desperate for somebody to come in and not just take over, but to infuse a new way of operating that truly blesses and loves those people in those communities that they operate in. So we get to do a little bit of whatever we want. The bottom line is we're using the same principles and the same playbook over and over and over because we didn't come up with them. It's just the stuff that actually makes human beings tick, and clean freaks and quality control. Every bit of it comes back to the culture of what you've established.
Yeah, unlike most of our guests on this show, Jeff, I'm meeting you for the first time. So we don't really have any background. We hadn't had conversations on the side or anything. And just hearing you describe that vision for culture and that connectedness of connecting what's going on outside of someone's work life with what's going on inside of someone's work life, and just being a whole person, that really speaks to a lot of the conversations we've had on this show. Even a couple of seasons ago, I did a show called Creating a Culture Worth Loving in Sterile Processing. And we spend so much time in our day jobs in healthcare, and to kind of go in and check in and sometimes be treated or expected to leave what's going on outside of work, like leave it at the door, as they tend to say. And in some sense, we can understand that if it's drama or if it's stress, you want to come in with a clear mind. But in another sense, as you described, you don't want to leave half of yourself out of the door because it probably leads to all kinds of other issues related to how you work and how well you work and what your ultimate goals are. And so, we could talk about a million different aspects of the culture, but obviously for this particular episode, I wanted to kick off this season talking about what in the business space and definitely within the healthcare space, we see a lot, we see discussed a lot, but not really defined a lot. And that's this idea of a mission, vision, and value statement. I'm assuming that you've had some interaction with those. You may have some opinions on those kind of documents. So give us maybe what you think those documents are for, and maybe an entry level opinion on, do you think they're helpful? Do you think they're not?
I'm probably guilty of being the guy who believes that they're so foundational and so critical that I take for granted that other people don't realize that. It's like, of course you would have your mission, vision, and values. You're a company. Why would you ever take off or do anything without A, putting those in place, and then B, revisiting them to make sure that they make sense for who you are in the changing landscape? And not that they should change a lot, but the idea that you're taking a fresh look at it every year or two still makes sense to me. So to describe, I guess, in the most layman terms, what I believe these are, the mission is, why do you exist? Like the what. You exist to X. And that's almost like a sterile statement. I don't think your mission has to be as inspirational as it is truly a punch into what it is you do. We exist to deliver this. We exist to build this, to provide this. And you can get kind of cute and make an inspirational word or two. But I think the inspiration really comes from the vision part of this. Like, if here's our mission and we have a vision to achieve this, right? And you actually want your vision to be something that you could achieve. It can't be a never ending impossible. It might be really close to impossible. Like, it's very hard to reach that. But to have a vision that you're working towards is what allows people to know every day that they show up. Some random Tuesday, they're walking in the office, they're walking into the hospital, and they have to understand the thing that I'm doing right now both has meaning in the moment. It's also contributing to a workplace mission to achieve something that's part of a bigger mission. And if we are all rowing in the same direction, and we can create that flywheel effect that every push is directionally in the same vein, the result could be that we are further towards or even achieving our vision, right? We could be competing against things that were otherwise impossible or improbable because we have a clear vision statement. And then the values, that's the best part to me. When you start to take your values and say, these are the pillars that are not movable. We're going to be on this mission going towards the same vision together. As a leader, I'm helping to cast that vision, to point out where we might be off, but we're, point you back in the right direction, but give you incredible autonomy. So much so that if you're operating within the core values of who we are, then everything else you do is actually part of your own formation. I want you to run with projects. I want you to do things differently than I would do them, so long as you're not going outside of these values of who we said we are. Those are the bumpers. I think it's interesting because if you just make values a few words, everybody says, I'm into honesty. Everybody says, I'm into excellent. Nobody's core value is almost excellent, right? But if you can contextualize values and you can make them a little bit more action oriented and then put the behaviors that exemplify that value on paper, and more importantly, the behaviors that are antithetical to that value, then it starts to take root. So I'll give you the honesty one. If your core value was open and honest communication, we'd all say, yep, I'm for it. That's cool. But if I started to tell you that that means you are expected to contribute in meetings and in the ongoing coaching of everyone in the organization, not just that it's okay, but it's an expectation. Now, if we finish a meeting and you have a grievance and you didn't bring it up, or you go and you start a sidebar conversation, that's not open and honest. Or if you let it sit and stew inside of you without becoming part of your contribution to others, that's not open and honest. And if people are trying to coach and bring you along, challenge you to grow, and they're doing it in an appropriate fashion, and you defend, rationalize, and explain away any potential growth, you're also not being open to the receipt of open and honest communication. So now I've just took the word honesty, right? Nice little core value, and turn it into something that we can actually look at. Are we operating within it? Are there ways that we could improve? How would we rank ourselves? How would we rank our relationship, our small group, and so on? And so I think that's where mission is what we literally exist for. Vision is where we're going, and core values are the bumpers that say, if you're in line with this, then let's go. Let's go test, try, iterate. Now in Clean Freaks, I don't want you making mistakes in right. your job, but I do want you trying new methods of how do I be more efficient? How do I get a better brand out there because the service is above and beyond? I do think that it's still important to embrace what does growth look like, even in a place where you have a very sensitive topic of what your service is.
Yeah, Jeff, your example even of honesty as a value reminded me of one of the values that we put down in a department when we first sat down, probably 2012, 2013. And one of the values we listed was enthusiasm. And it was a really interesting value to add because what it forced us to do as an entire team is when people came in and they were clearly not enthusiastic about being there today and about maybe what they were being asked to do or the challenges that were in front of them, it caused us to come back and do exactly what you said about the honesty piece, is say, yes, this is a different maybe approach to what you perhaps expected in this job, that you could just come in. This was a job that you could come in and hate and still do the job and then get away with it. But this value sets that apart and says, actually, you can't do that.
Yes.
In this organization, you must come in with enthusiasm. And then obviously from the leadership standpoint, like we got to create structures and we got to cultivate enthusiasm in our team. We can't kill it at the same time that we're asking for it. But, calling that out in those specific behaviors was such a critical piece to our journey and our success in growing that kind of value on our team. So I really, really appreciated that example. That was just terrific.
I don't think I've ever heard somebody use enthusiasm as a value. And so kudos. I think that's really neat. The one that translated to, as you explained what it meant when you went deeper, I've had a team where one of our core values was ride for the brand. That as an American West cowboy, would be riding for the brand. This isn't just a job, nor is it supposed to bleed over and take over your life. We don't define ourselves by it. But let's take pride in this. Let's make it a place where we want people to know this is where we work and that we're always representing the organization that we're at, because we act and interact as owner mindset, this kind of impact player mindset for any problems or opportunities. And then just like, let's carry this over. I'm not going to talk bad about my wife and children, because if I do, eventually I'm going to start to believe that kind of stuff. There's problems at work. There's problems, in any of the scheduling and stuff that you go through. I got 7 kids. I could complain about work and I could complain about kids, but then I become a guy who's complaining. I've lost enthusiasm. I'm not riding for the brand. Truth is, I love my wife and kids, and I have a lot to work on. I love what I'm doing with and for our clients, and there's still areas that we need to improve, but I'm not going to be this negative, unenthusiastic person, because that's countercultural to what we're building.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that sparks too is looking kind of at the end of life. And you got these folks that have given their entire life to a particular industry, operating room nurse or sterile processing tech. And you got to think, at the end of your life, would you want to look back and say that I invested in something that I just didn't really like that much? And it caused me to check in and check out for 8 or 10 or 12 hours a day, every single day of my working life. Is that the way that anyone really wants to live? If there's an alternative to live in a way that there is more value and there's more impact in ourselves and our community, just, pride in who we are and what we do at the workplace, but also in the industry, like the job that we have, like you said, riding for the brand. I think that's another great takeaway, to just think a little bit deeper than this is a paycheck. It could be more. And, do you want it to be more? And then obviously this conversation is, how do you begin to inculcate that across your team? And one of the conversations I definitely want to get your answer to here is, in healthcare, I don't know any health system that doesn't have a mission, vision, value statement at the high level, at the system level. So all of, Baylor, Scott and White, or all of Catholic Health Initiatives, or all of, insert the brand name. And yet there's a lot of different kinds of departments that are doing very different things within healthcare. One of which obviously is the sterile processing one that we're all involved in. And so my question for you is it worth taking these high level mission, vision, values of corporate and then coming down to my department and either nuancing or maybe even completely adding new ones, not undermining the overarching one, but maybe adding some new ones? What's your perspective? Is that helpful? Is it dangerous? Is there other way maybe to get what I'm trying to get at, which is, hey, this up here actually does mean something for us down here?
I love this question. I think maybe you can be a culture freak too, because you seem to have a good grasp of where this all kind of comes together. Yes, I think it's important and valuable, and you already said it, to do it in a way that is in no way antithetical to the larger scale mission, vision, and values. But I've seen this work as a place of absolute team building and cohesion, like a shared experience to come up with what is our vision together versus just being a part of a bigger vision. Now, if you think about a clean room what's the right words for it so I can say it right? The clean, sterile room tech.
Yeah, sterilization.
Yeah, so when you kind of get into that, your mission statement or your vision statement doesn't need to sound exactly like the whole hospital systems. It could be very specific to something that you have a better line of sight to. So we've done this process over and over with clients where we take hundreds and hundreds of images. And I mean, there are all sorts of different stuff, cartoons, still pictures, crowds. They're very interpretive. And without letting them talk, we ask them a framing question. And one of my favorites is, where are we going? What is possible with this team if we have success? Or what does success look like? You kind of frame this question and then just let them go look at an image that speaks to them. Then they have to go through this litany of questions they answer about the actual image. And then about how does that image relate to the framing question that, what does success look like? What you start to hear from people is aspiration, inspiration. It's understanding of things that may be outside of their swim lane, right? You might have somebody who's in a specific department, or maybe they have a technical expertise. but they have a view into the brand or the customer service that nobody's ever asked them about. And now they have this creative freedom because we're in a process together. We've already established that we're going to be in some open and honest, enthusiastic setup so that we're kind of firing off on a safe, like contribution mindset. But now all of a sudden we come out of it and we may have a team vision, maybe even an image. Maybe there's 6 of us and your image resonates with everybody. And that image starts to take on its own meaning. Maybe we take it and we put it on everybody's computer or at the bottom of your email signature, whatever it is, so that we can remember A, the team camaraderie that we have together, and then B, why are we doing this? Like, why does tomorrow matter any different than any other day? And it's because we're going, hopefully, one step closer towards that vision, that version of what success could look like. So I know that's a random example, but we do stuff like that all the time. I'll give you another one just to plant an idea in your head. Write a note that your team kind of collaborates on, right? Everybody kind of contributes their bullet points of what everybody would be saying about your team. What are the doctors saying? What does hospital administration? What do patients say? What are patients not saying? Like, what is the brand around you? Write it and date it for 3 years from today and say, what would it look like if we were twice the impact that we are right now, 3 years from now? And write it in the present tense. Hank and I have just scrubbed in, or we've done all this background work to establish this new protocol, and this is what doctors are saying. And if you know what the future could look like, then today matters because you work your way all the way backwards to what would you do right now differently for that outcome.
Yeah, that's a perfect setup and segue to a follow-up that I want to ask you here that ties into an experience I had probably 8 years ago now. I walked in a department that was covered with this kind of cultural signage, maybe we'll call it, all kinds of posters. And you've seen them, the motivational kind of posters, the one with the stork and the frog, and he's like holding his throat, right? And he's like, never give up. Or, the kitten that's hanging on the thing, it says like, don't let go. And I walked around this department and it was filled with people who hated their job, who had given up, who were just a hollow version of themselves, had no trust for their leadership. And then they're surrounded by all of these like cultural signals that you would think just by looking at the posters or maybe like looking at their email signatures, like you referenced, you would think they would be what they want to be. They would, if they would have wrote that note, like you said, for 3 years in the future, like they would be in a very different place, and yet they weren't. How would you, and I bring that up because I know there's departments out there like that probably have these posters on the wall that are just like a tombstone to what the culture was supposed to be, but it died a long time ago. How do you even start to unwind that? You got to go back and just scrape it all away, or can you recover that initial vision and start today? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, I would love to be that home remodeling where you go in for demo day and you're like ripping down posters, because I think it would send one heck of a signal if you made a big to-do about ripping up the cat poster. I would love that job. At the end of the day, if your top leaders are not involved in this, it is an uphill battle. It's still worth fighting and it's still winnable. I've been in both sides of that. Certainly, though, if you're an executive, a leader, you have a position of power, I would tell you that just like you had to be excellent at a craft and you studied it, what are you studying to be a better leader, meaning a better communicator, better at relationship building, and better at understanding the architecture of an organization? Are you getting coached? Are you studying the best leaders in the world? Do you have peer groups that you go to? And how are you being held accountable to those things? Because we can't just show up and think leadership is this outcome. You wouldn't be able to be doing the technical work you were doing without studying. Why are we allowing leaders to get away with that? And then I would say, if you dig into these pillars, right? Communication is about intentionality. What are the norms of our email structure? What are the norms of giving and receiving feedback? How frequently do people expect to receive regular, ongoing feedback, not just about their outcomes, but about how they're showing up, how they're working, where they fit into the team, so that nothing's ever a surprise. It's always a work in progress. And then what are we doing about relationships? How are we building not just one-on-one, but these triadic relationships? How are we breaking down barriers so that I'm not trying to protect information? We're going from protectionist views to partnership views. We're going from I'm great to we're great. And then how do we think about the architecture of the way we run our businesses? Sometimes we have rules in place that make sense for the masses that don't make sense for the specific scenario that we're talking about. And we need to have that common sense to say, let's humanize the businesses that we run. Let's humanize what it means to be a clean freak so that the human beings are showing up as the best version of themselves. They feel healthy, supported, challenged, fulfilled. Because at the end of the day, you may not even still care about the work itself. You start to care about the people that are the benefactors of that work. And now it has bigger and deeper meaning. Culture turnarounds are tough, but they're not impossible. And the number one way they happen to me is putting points on the scoreboard over a long period of time, winning by being the best in class. And I don't mean you're trying to beat the other guy in your work, the other work group. I'm just saying do the most excellent work you can and people notice. Do it together as a team and people get jealous. Start to latch on other teams to your team and you start to create this snowball effect that most people would get to that place where they say, I get to go to work. Thank God it's Monday. I can't wait to tackle problems together because I'm about to spend 40 hours doing it. So we might as well make this as great of an experience as we can.
Jeff, our time sped by, and I know we just scratched the surface of many of the questions, number one, that I wanted to ask you, but honestly, just the tremendous insight that you have to share on these topics. We got a lot of department leaders, health system leaders, manufacturers that tune into this show. If they want to hear more from you, maybe bring you out to one of their conferences or maybe even join some other podcast, online training stuff, what's the best way for these companies and folks to get a hold of you?
Thanks for asking. The website's very easy to remember because the name of our company is Undivided Life and the website is undivided.life. So if you go there, you'll find the resources both for ongoing professional development. We have different courses and bundles all around this people-centric culture and leadership. You can also then reach out to book me or one of the team members as a speaker, and I'm speaking about once or twice a week in the exact same environments and arenas that you're describing there, large audiences, small workshops, keynotes. And then on top of that, we'd love if anybody is looking to scale both their organization from a professionalization and a personalization standpoint at the same point, right? That have your cake and eat it too. Undivided Life is a well-stacked team ready to take on any client opportunities where we can help others to turn their business into a blessing.
All right. Well, Jeff, thanks again for joining us on the show. I think if I can twist your arm, we may have you back again in a future season. We'll see.
Let's do it.
If we can make that happen. But yeah, guys, that was Jeff Schiefelbein, and we'll be right back with more from Beyond Clean. That was Jeff Schiefelbein, managing partner at Undivided Life. And we threw a lot at you real quick in this episode 1 of season 24, getting you thinking deeper about this mission, vision, and values, not only in SPD, but obviously across your health system, the big mission, the big vision, the big values. But even as Jeff highlighted, the goal of all this is to live as an undivided person, an undivided clean freak who can come to work and feel connected with the big vision, with the big dream that's brought down to earth in our SPD. What does it mean for us to be honest in the workplace across our teams? What does it mean to be enthusiastic? What does it mean to have a strong work ethic in light of the values and the mission of our sterile processing team? We're going to flesh all of these things out in the remaining episodes in season 24. But this one in particular, I wanted to spark and inspire you to think bigger, to think missionally, to think culturally, to be a culture freak, just like you are already a clean freak if you're listening to this show. And as we wrapped, please reach out to Jeff. You can connect directly with him on LinkedIn. and you'll see his name in the write-up of this show. So track him down on LinkedIn, start following his stuff. He's got great content out there. And if you'd like to have Jeff at maybe one of your future conference events or one of your team trainings, definitely connect with him about that as well. Because as you could tell, we were just scratching the surface of the value to be had around the impact of culture on our team. So that's going to do it for this episode 1 of season 24 at Beyond Clean. And like we tell you all the time here, keep fighting dirty. I'm going to tell you today, culture matters.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Beyond Clean. As a reminder, you can help support us by subscribing to Beyond Clean on your favorite podcast app or by downloading the smartphone app on iPhone or Android. Simply search for Beyond Clean in the App Store or Google Play. The best thing about downloading the smartphone app is that you can access bonus content for certain episodes and view episodes in certain categories, like articles on the go and vendor spotlights. Are you following us on LinkedIn or Facebook yet? If you are and you love an episode or post, then let your social network know about it. Like, comment, or share our posts along with your thoughts and keep the conversation going. If you have any topics or guests that you would like to recommend for a future episode, just send us an email to info@beyondclean.net. We look forward to hearing from you.